Welcome back. We got my little buddy with me again today, sitting on my lap, just in case you've seen. I hope you've learned some important information about cancer and a little bit about chemo the last time. This time I'm going to share specifically what the chemo regimen that was chosen for me and the side effects that I experienced. But before I share the regimen, I want to explain something. I never, ever wanted to have chemotherapy. I did not, no way did I want to take and put that junk in me. But after they explained that the type of cancer I had and the treatment plan was very successful in it not returning, I basically felt like I didn't have a choice. I wanted to live, so I had to go along with whatever they told me I had to do. I still cannot believe all that junk was put in me, but it had some good success. At the time, I don't know how to explain it other than I felt like a robot going through the motions, doing whatever they told me, because I really felt like I didn't have a say in it because the treatment plan was supposed to work. Well, several months after I was diagnosed, I didn't have energy, or much drive to research my situation, and Reed Health had given me a binder with a lot of information about my treatment plan. But at that particular time, I glanced at it, but I just could not bring myself to read it. It just made the situation too real. And I was having a hard time accepting that I was actually experiencing the C word. It was months before I ever actually said I had cancer. So it was hard for me to take in research and look at that literature. Finally, months later, I did open the binder a little bit more, and I realized that there was information in it about meals, help with transportation, and a lot of details about the specific chemotherapy drugs that I was being given. So if you're going through cancer and you just feel like I did, where I just couldn't handle reading any more of the literature or doing any research, I get it. But I encourage you, little by little, look at the information because you might find some very helpful tips in there. Okay, back to my specific regimen that they chose for me. The local oncologist, with the advice of the IU Thymus Guru, chose the specific regimen to work on both my breast cancer and the thymus cancer. Now, there are many different types of breast cancer and stages. The type that I was diagnosed with was HER2 positive, estrogen positive, and progesterone positive at stage 1A. The thymoma cancer was stage 2B, but keep in mind the type of breast cancer I had is one of the best types to have because there is a very effective treatment plan, but it's very intense. So they prescribed 16 chemotherapy treatments. The first 4 I'll call phase 1, which is very hard regimen that was given every 2 weeks. And the next 12 I will call phase 2, and they were given weekly. Each week I had chemotherapy. There were many medical appointments. I had to have lab work no more than 72 hours before my chemotherapy for them to make sure my blood levels were high enough for the chemotherapy. I met with the oncologist. She reviewed the lab results, and then we would discuss any issues that I was having. All the treatments were administered on the scheduled time, except phase 2, chemo number 3, was postponed 1 week because my blood levels were too low. So before the treatment began, my husband and I had an agreement. You see, I had been told that chemotherapy could be really tough. So my goal in life during chemotherapy was to work 40 hours a week, go to all my medical appointments, do my laundry, and rest. My husband took over the cooking, cleaning, any other household responsibilities. And I'm telling you, I am so grateful for my husband's attitude and willingness to step up to this challenge. I could not have made it through without his help. You know, neither of us ever expected to be going through something like this. And when you get married, you say for better or worse. Well, I'm telling you, my husband's been put through the worst with this experience, but he really shined through and really helped. I worked 40 hours during chemotherapy unless there were medical procedures that prevented me from physically being able to work that many hours. Everyone could not believe that I was able to work that much, but I did it with God's help. And I discovered that if I used more than 12 weeks of FMLA leave in 1 year, I could lose my insurance. So I'll be honest, that was a big motivation for me to work that much. Because I knew they planned on having thymoma surgery in December, I needed to save as much FMLA leave as I could. So therefore, I just made myself work, even though I didn't feel like it. I also was very grateful to my employer that he allowed me to adjust my hours and he accommodated my medical schedule. Typically, I had 8 to 10 hours of medical appointments besides working 40 hours a week. Well, my first chemotherapy treatment started the last week of June of 2020. My first 4 chemotherapy treatments was a very hard regimen of Adriamycin and Cytoxan. Most people who have those drugs have a really hard time with major side effects. I thank God, though, everyone was amazed with how well I actually did. But I had a lot of people praying for me too. My side effects were not near as severe as a lot of people. Now, I'm not saying those 4 first treatments were super easy, but I did much better than typical. Prior to the first treatment, though, I was very apprehensive about how I would feel actually having the chemotherapy administered to me. And when they did administer it, it was strange. I felt different at different treatments, even though they were administering the same drugs. I remember the first few times my chest, when they put the medicine, it just felt like this whooshing feeling coming from my port. I don't know how to explain it other than it was a creepy feeling. My husband went with me the first time, and I asked him to help distract me. It really made a difference if someone was there to help distract me from that whoosh feeling, or other times I would have head pressure and just odd feelings that were actually kind of scary at times. So the distraction really helped. During the first 4 treatments, I had to take steroid pills before and after the treatments to help prevent side effects. I was given several pre-meds also before the Adriamycin and Cytoxan to help prevent side effects. And the main side effects that I had with the first 4 was nauseousness, head pressure, mouth sores, skin rash, weird appetite, fatigue, and hair loss. Yeah, that sounds like a big list, and I said I did a lot better than most people, but I still had a lot of side effects. I had been given multiple prescriptions for nauseousness and diarrhea, but I only used one. You see, I don't like taking medicines, so I preferred more natural methods of treatment instead of prescription medicine. I also regularly sought treatment from an acupuncturist who also was an oncologist, so I felt very blessed that he had ample knowledge about what I actually was going through. And his treatments definitely helped lessen the intensity of the side effects. I also used essential oils. Now, I can't say they'll work for other people, but I'm going to share what I used because it worked for me. I used ginger essential oil and put it on my wrists to help prevent nauseousness. It didn't take all the nauseousness away, but it definitely helped. I also sucked on ginger drops on occasion too, and drank real ginger ale, and the combination of those really did help me manage the nauseousness, and I never threw up once. So I was very grateful for that. Peppermint essential oil helped with the head pressure. And then in order to help prevent any viral or bacterial infection that I might get if my blood levels went down, I used thieves and oregano essential oil. Another side effect I experienced with mouth sores. They were very painful. They're caused from chemotherapy killing off cells. And when the chemotherapy kills the cells, it not only kills the bad cells, but it can kill the good cells, which cause the mouth to get like white spots in it, or inside it could even be white all over. So I was very grateful that I only had 3 horrible days of my mouth being sore. To help prevent it, several times a day, I gargled and washed my mouth out with a mixture of water, soda, and salt, and it did help some. Other times, the sores, it was sore, but it was bearable. Skin rash was a very bad side effect I had. I had it on the scalp, my chest, my arms, my upper back. My oncologist and acupuncturist attempted to prescribe several types of creams, but none of them were successful. So they ended up referring me to a dermatologist, and she prescribed a different cream, a couple of them in fact, and they helped, but the rash never totally went away until weeks after the first regimen was completed. Because of the nauseousness, I had to be very cautious with what I ate. My appetite was not normal. I was encouraged to eat whatever sounded good because they wanted me to maintain my weight, which I did. I lost a few pounds, which I actually liked because my clothes felt better. But overall, I basically maintained it. I'm going to tell you, ice cream became my friend. Spicy foods, did not agree with me. I could not eat pizza or spaghetti for months. Then what was weird, especially on the first 4 chemo treatments, I occasionally had weird cravings. All of a sudden, I need a Burger King Junior Whopper and a strawberry shake. And my husband would rush off to get it. And it was exciting because it was something that sounded good that I actually could eat. Another time, Arby's roast beef sandwich. It was just weird. I would just get these cravings. And I got excited because instead of looking at food repulsively, something actually really did sound good. Fatigue was a normal part of the first 4 chemotherapies. Work allowed me to lay down on a beanbag type thing that I put in my office, and during lunches especially, I pretty much every day rested during like a half an hour lunchtime. And chemotherapy, we purposely had them on Wednesdays because usually Saturday and Sunday the fatigue got worse, and that way I was able to rest a lot better. Another side effect, hair loss. That was a devastating side effect. My hair was long down the middle of my back, and in the next post I'm going to share about that experience and how I felt when my hair fell off, how it felt when we had to cut it, and I'll show you the ponytail we saved. And then I purchased many head coverings and wigs. So I'll tell you about that next time. After the first 4 chemotherapies, they did a PET scan to see the progress with the thymoma cancer, to see if it was shrinking. You see, originally it was 4.8 centimeters. After the first 4 chemotherapies, it had already shrunk to 1.9 centimeters. I praise the Lord. Those harsh chemos actually were working. Now, phase 2 of chemotherapy was 12 weeks. It was a regimen of Taxol, Herceptin, and Perjeta. Taxol and Herceptin were weekly, and then Perjeta was every 3 weeks. I was told it would be easier than the first 4 treatments, and it was. But the first treatment I actually had a reaction during the treatment. I sat in a recliner and I began to chill. And I had my husband ask if I could have another blanket. So we put that on. Then I began to shake. By that time, the nurse realized I was having a reaction to one of the drugs. So she gave me more Benadryl in order to counteract the reaction. That was scary. But after the fact, I was told the reaction really wasn't that bad, but I definitely did have a reaction. But they weren't sure which drug I reacted to. I reacted during the Herceptin, but I had had Perjeta right before that, so we don't know which one I reacted to. But after I got home, I even had something scarier happen. You see, my husband works 3rd shift, and because he was with me at chemotherapy that day, he went to bed to get some sleep. And so I was up by myself, and I was in the kitchen, and all of a sudden, I just felt like passing out. But I didn't know why. It was scary, and I didn't want to wake him. So I pretty much just sat around the rest of the evening. Well, I came to the conclusion, remember I had Benadryl as a pre-med. Well, they gave me additional Benadryl when I had that reaction. So I'm going to say my body was overdosed on Benadryl as a result of that. I believe the total amount I had was probably more than what my body really wanted. But after that evening, then I ended up being okay. But the next time I had chemotherapy and the next time I had Perjeta, remember Perjeta is only every 3 weeks, I was scared to go. I was very apprehensive because I didn't want to have another reaction. But they told me that it was very rare to ever react again. Now, the main side effects that I had during phase 2 of chemotherapy with those 12 treatments was diarrhea, eye sensitivity, and nail damage. Now, the diarrhea was bad. For example, I would attempt to go for a walk in my neighborhood, and I'd get about a block away, and I'd have to go to the bathroom. And I really had a difficult time making it home in time. So I pretty much, for those 12 weeks, was unable to travel anywhere very far unless I knew that there was a bathroom near. I remember several times I'd be in Walmart and I'd tell my husband, I gotta go to the bathroom. And I would just rush off to the bathroom. Because when it hit, and I had to. And that was extremely frustrating. And because it was so bad, even though I don't like medicine, I chose to take the Imodium that they had prescribed for me. But depending on how many pills I took, because I would vary the amount of pills depending on how bad the diarrhea was, I wound up feeling very bloated at times, experienced a lot of stomach pressure. The acupuncturists actually really did help to control the diarrhea, but I experienced it to some degree the whole time. Another side effect I had during phase 2 was eye sensitivity. Now, my eyes typically are already sensitive to the light, but it was just like the light was super annoying. And I also had several ocular migraines during that time. I didn't know what that was, but I'm telling you, the first time it happened to me, it was very scary. I saw this thing like bright light flashing, and I called the eye doctor, and it ended up being okay, but it was scary. But the side effect that I didn't realize I actually was having was nail damage. I typically wore fingernail polish, and towards the end of phase 2, the nails got to be very sensitive when I pushed on them. So I took the nail polish off and I realized they looked purplish in some of the areas. And the end of the fingernails changed their appearance. And it's hard to describe, but imagine the end of the nail coming loose underneath it, up about 1/4 of an inch under the nail, which made the nail very unstable, and loose as it grew out. So to begin with, I would cut it off up underneath, but as it would grow out, then it would get sore as it would start to dig into the skin. So I realized, no, that's not what I'm supposed to do. But for several months, because of the nail problem, I was limited in opening jars or baggies. I either could not grip it well enough to open, or it just hurt too bad. So often my husband had to end up opening it for me. As I'm recording this, it's 4 to 5 months after chemotherapy got done, and I'm still struggling with my nails, but I can now open jars and baggies without that bothering me, so that's good. During the treatments, I grew very close to the chemotherapy nurses. There were 3 main chemo nurses, but one of them typically was the one that took care of me as long as she was working that day. And the last day of chemotherapy, 2 of those 3 nurses were working, and I asked if I could take their picture, and they eagerly accepted. Now, in this picture, the nurse on the left is Cindy, and she was the main nurse that took care of me. And Michelle was on the right, and she was just a sweet, sweet person. We talked about God a lot. I really enjoyed her too. But what Cindy did on the last day really surprised me. She gave me a cake to celebrate that I had completed 16 chemos. And that was such a surprise and such a blessing. But after those 16 weeks of chemotherapy, when they were done, I really missed my weekly visits. You see, this was during COVID and social distancing, and the nurses were like people I regularly saw. So we got a relationship, and it was really emotionally difficult for me. Looking back, now that I physically feel much better, I really am not sure how I did it. But regardless, I'm grateful that God helped me through it. One of the doctors actually said because I kept active, because I kept pushing myself, it actually probably helped. But I definitely took time and rested. But I felt like I was a bulldog, is the way I'm going to say it. A bulldog just plowing my way through each day, forcing myself to just do it because I didn't want to use up all my FMLA and lose my insurance. I want to thank you for coming along on this journey. I want to leave you with a scripture verse of encouragement. Ephesians 3:20 in the New Living Translation says, "Now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think." That is exactly what my God did for me during my chemotherapy treatments. I give God praise for what he helped me through. Many prayers were answered. I hope that you will continue with me on this journey. And next time, remember, I will share how I felt when my hair started falling out and I had to cut it, and got wigs and what wearing wigs was like. So I hope to see you next time.